Hey everyone, this is 𝗪𝗂𝗁𝗃, author, line editor, copy editor, and proofreader at thelanguageagent.com. Today we have David Redbord, author of the complete PTSD recovery process with us. Hi David, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
All right, a bit early for me, but
That's funny.
yeah, that's the thing about, if you work from home, you don't have to get up super early, and like 10 or 11 o'clock is kind of early for us. You can just sleep in.
Right. I like sleeping in too.
Yeah, especially if you have pets. Just gonna snuggle time with them.
Right.
So would you talk a little bit more about your personal and professional background? You have quite an interesting background, combining left brain academia and right brain woo in your work.
Woo.
Yeah.
So I have a master's in public health and another master's in clinical mental health counseling. And then I have a whole bunch of training and certifications in Eastern healing methods like Reiki, pranic healing, 𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗃, tapping, other kinds of energy healing. And then I'm trained in several kinds of breath work. I'm actually a yoga teacher also, certified.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
everything under the sun, basically.
I have all the things. All the things.
I'm nothing compared to you. I'm only doing Reiki. That's about it.
Well, I don't know if we need to compare. So I think we're okay.
Yeah. Right. And how did you get started as a trauma recovery coach or counselor? Correct me if I'm wrong when it comes to the title and everything.
Right. So let's see here. So there's this quote by Rumi that governs a lot of the work that I do. And it just happens that my work fits with the quote. It's not like I planned on it. But the quote is, your task is not to seek for love. Your task is to seek and find all the barriers you have made against it. Right? So I view trauma as one of the most significant barriers we can have to love and well-being. And I think about how many things trauma impacts, right? And how it can interrupt our ability to live our lives the way we want. And so it just strikes me as such a common thing because, we're talking about two separate things. One is PTSD, right? The complete PTSD recovery process, which is a diagnosis, right? But then how much trauma do a majority of people have that just goes undiagnosed, unnoticed, undiscussed, that keeps us from living our lives the way we want? And so I created that book and this body of work that I'm currently putting out and offering to the public to support people in resolving their trauma and then as a result their PTSD at a really deep level. And that's like my first dip of my toe in the water that I want to help people resolve other barriers in addition to trauma as well. So I'm looking forward to that too. So I'm not just a trauma coach. My interest is in what is keeping you from being your most fulfilled whole self in the world. Let's release whatever barrier is keeping you from doing that, however that shows up.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something major like trauma, PTSD, or complex PTSD. It has like a little bit, it does affect what you're doing. So basically, and what was your goal or were your goals in writing your book, The Complete PTSD Recovery Process?
So I wanted to really create a quality book that would contain a step-by-step process that if people just follow the process in this book, they would see significant results in releasing the emotional burdens they've been carrying related to their trauma, and thereby be able to heal their PTSD. So that's one goal. A second goal is I wanted to be able to include the book as part of my sales process as a way of introducing people to my work, as a very low-cost way of not just introducing people to the work, but also giving them a solution that would potentially create massive change for them as well. Those are the and then the third reason is as you know, I followed a strategy, it's a process to make my book the #1 international bestseller.
Yep.
And I did that as a way of creating more credibility and authority for me, so that when I put out other material related to trauma and PTSD, and when I want to pursue other opportunities, I have that quote unquote credential to
business card. Yeah. Basically.
What was that?
A business card.
Yeah, a business card. It just adds more credibility and authority to me when I pursue other things.
It makes a lot of sense, because that's what everybody's doing, which is a good thing, because not necessarily like, like, oh, jumping on a bandwagon just because it's cool, but it actually serves a purpose.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. And tell me about your experience writing your book. What would you say were your most valuable lessons?
So, I like to say that I didn't write the book, even though it's my book. What I did do was I took what I wanted to.
That's fine.
We'll wait a second. We'll wait a second, so it's not in the bag, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. It stops.
Okay.
Gotta love interruptions.
So I like to say that I didn't write it, but rather I thought about what I wanted to put in there, and I put together some PowerPoint presentations.
Oh, okay.
Did you know this?
No, I didn't know that.
You didn't know this?
No.
So I put together, I can't believe, I would have sworn I told you this, but
no, you didn't.
I put together these PowerPoint presentations, and I went in my Facebook group and I set up events, and I invited the people in the group to, come to these live trainings that I'm doing related to, learning how to do tapping and managing your emotions with tapping and healing trauma with tapping. And so that way I then, I made a Zoom webinar, gave these presentations live, recorded the webinars. And then not only that, but during the webinars, I asked the people that were live with me, could you go on the event page and leave a testimonial about how this training was? So I used it as a way of gathering some early testimonials and social proof. And so I took those Zoom recordings and I gave them to someone to transcribe. By the time all was said and done, I think I had 4.5, 5 hours something of audio to be transcribed. And so I have them transcribed, and I got them back, and I spent several hours over a couple of days, several hours this day, several hours another day, just going through, and like when I got it back, it was 36,000 words. So I went through it and I said, okay, what doesn't need to be included here? So I cut. And that brought it from 36,000 down to 28,000 words, which is a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a third of the book. That's a third of, or excuse me, a quarter rather. And then what I did was I wanted to add an introduction and a conclusion. So I wrote out I sat in front of the computer and I wrote out the introduction, and I wrote out the conclusion, which is a really short implementation plan of like, hey, if you approach this book and you take these things in this order, you will see some results here. And I put those bookends on the book, and voila, a book.
Oh, wow.
And
easier than most people would think.
Yes, it's like, I can't tell you, I've recommended this method to a bunch of people because the way that writing is traditionally talked about is like,
Yes.
you should sit in front of the computer and do 500 to 1,000 words per day.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo, blame it on that.
and right, and if you don't write, we'll blame it on that, and you will have a book in a year, and and that's not what I wanted to do. And I like teaching, right? I like teaching, and so it just fit naturally to put together these PowerPoints and just give the book as presentations and put those presentations together. And of course, they have to relate to each other. You can't, like,
yeah.
You know, you're not going to talk about surfing and fly fishing, the same, probably not in the same book.
And puggles.
Right. So, let's see. That's the first recommendation, is that. The second, I'm trying to think if I have other key ones. Make the book cover on 99 Designs. I was really pleased. When you go on 99 Designs, you can Google what the best practices are for it. I actually don't remember the best practices right now off the top of my head, but I was determined, because it's not cheap. It's not terribly expensive, but it's not cheap. And I wanted a cover for my Kindle book and for
paperback.
Yeah. Right. And so what I did was I ran a contest. Something that you like, here's a best practice that I do remember. When you run the contest, you make it blind. So what that means is that so let me just explain what 99 Designs is briefly. You make a design brief, and designers will contribute design entries for this brief. And so you have people from all over the world with all kinds of different perspectives and takes on this thing that you want created, submitting these designs to you, which is just wonderful, because then you get to choose from an array of different concepts for your cover. Now, I had some designers reach out and say, will you make this contest blind? And at first I was like, I don't know about that. What's that mean? I'm new to this. So I literally called 99 Designs.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. Wait till I tell you the rest.
Okay, awesome.
So I called 99 Designs and I said, what is this blind thing? Should I make it blind? And they said, yes, that's fine. So I made it blind, and what that means is each designer cannot see the designs of the other designers. Therefore, they cannot copy each other. And so what you're getting, you continue to get an influx of new, different designs. And of course, I found okay, this designer is using this color that I like, great. So I'm going to share this color with the designer that I like the most. And, this designer is using this image that I like, so I'm going to share this image with this designer. Right. So I shared the things that I felt were essential to making the cover that I wanted. But I'm going to tell you some best practices that I used, which I'm remembering more as we talk about them. I responded to every single design that I received.
Oh, wow.
I did not and by every single, I mean virtually every single.
Yeah.
And what that does is on the designers end, it shows them like a statistic for how responsive the person who put out the brief is. How responsive is this? I don't know what they call the person making the contest, but the contest runner, right? And so when designers see that a contest runner is more responsive, more designers will submit designs because they know that they have a chance and they know that they're going to get feedback. So I received all in all about 100 designs from 26 different designers. And I will say that I gave feedback on 95% of those, whatever it is. And not only that, I was determined to get, because this cover represents your book. So I was determined to get really the most bang for my buck, but also to get like a beautiful cover. So I no joke, the contest runs for 5 days. I called 99 Designs most of those days one time to ask them, hey, could you look at my contest? Is there anything that I could be doing better or differently in my contest to get more out of it? And I will say that 99 Designs, again, one of the things that made the experience really, really nice is their customer service is amazing. Like I couldn't say offhand what feedback they gave me right now, but they gave me awesome feedback, which I was just so appreciative of. Oh, so like here's another best practice. As the contest is ongoing, you don't want to rate anything 4 or 5 stars right out of the gate. Like you
have to wait.
You want to wait. So you like, if you like things, you rate them 2 or 3 stars. And then what you do is give exact feedback for what you're wanting. Like, hey, could you change this and make it this way? What if you tried this thing looking this way? Blah, 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 blah. And I have to tell you, I get really specific. So I give people like numbered instructions, like step 1. this is the, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, because I want to see what they're going to give me in return. Right? I want to see how good can you make these designs. And then of course it was really nice. I took the finalists. I knew which one I liked best. I took the finalists. I posted them in a Facebook group.
I remember voting on it.
I polled them to see, which ones do you like? And what was nice was I was very validated. My favorite designer, the cover that I liked the best, came back the best. And also something that's important to me too is as the contest goes on, you see the quality of the responsiveness of the designers. And so you get a sense for like who really wants to work with you and who actually has a good work ethic, and things like that. And that's important to me too.
It was like an audition for you.
Right. And now I have the guy that I imagine is going to do the majority of my book covers, right? And now the beauty of that whole thing is after you run the contest one time, hopefully you find your person, and instead of paying the full fee going forward, you can continue to go through 99 Designs, but you can pay a much, much lower fee for further covers when you, instead of running a contest, you just pay the one person to do the work that you need. And something else about the contest was, well, I'll comment here briefly. So I put my book up on Amazon, and the book was originally called The Complete PTSD.
Yes.
Did I talk to you about
I remember that.
It was a whole thing. I put it up on Amazon. It was originally called The Complete PTSD Healing Process. Amazon didn't like the word healing, so I had to, right. So I had to go and have the designer fix the cover and pay the designer a little more money to fix the cover, and then change the title on Amazon and re-upload the book. And so what's really nice is the designer was willing to work with me, right? So this guy, I voiced my concern to him prior to the end of the contest. Hey, what if there's an issue, and he said, this is my cover. I'm here to support and help you. And again, that was important to me going forward. So those are my 2 main suggestions, I guess. One is regarding how to write the book, right? Do a training, do a presentation, record yourself instead of struggling in front of the keyboard. And the other one is make the most out of the 99 Designs contest. I had a lot of fun doing it. It was really fun. My dad's an artist, so my dad and I sat and looked at these designs and just had fun talking about them and thinking about them, and a lot of fun. So use the best practices for 99 Designs.
I'm learning more now. That's cool. And what are the major do's and don'ts when it comes to editing? My personal favorite, as you already know, and everybody else already knows it.
Wait a minute, you edit?
Don't play dumb.
So Well, this is new to me. Maybe I'll hire you. So, let's see. Oh man. So
I know you have lots of stories to share in that department.
so I'm thinking about it, and it's like, oh, where do I begin? So I went on Fiverr, and I had two experiences there. So I got a content editor through Fiverr and a line editor through Fiverr. And what's interesting to me is the line editor was terrible, just terrible, and the content editor was great. She had a lovely attitude, very encouraging, and she was able to go through my book and just make some comments like, hey, I don't know if you need to include this, or hey, some people might be offended by this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe you want to look at this, you know. So she was able to go through the whole book and do that, which I really appreciated. And I could see working with her again in the future. And the line editor was terrible. Just like I you know, there are people that you hire that make life more difficult and add more work. And that line editor was definitely one of these folks. Although that wasn't her intention. Let's see. Like I'm trying to think, where do I begin here? So despite having like a very encouraging rating on Fiverr, with I think, I don't recall exactly, but I think she probably had hundreds of, you know, positive ratings on Fiverr. She gave me the book back, and she gave me a letter with the book, you know. So I don't know what they call it, but a letter from the editor to just comment on their overall experience of the book, and, you know,
evaluation. That's what I call manuscript
evaluation. Feedback, something, right? So I get this letter back, and I read the letter, and the letter is very encouraging. However, in the letter, there are 2 grammatical errors in the letter. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not a good sign when the line editor of my book, and again, you're an editor, you know more about the definitions of this thing. I'm hiring this person to go through and fix the grammar and spelling in my book, and this person is sending me a letter with grammatical errors. So right away, this was a red flag. Let's see. And so then I went through the book, and
it was worse than I thought.
What was that?
That was worse than I thought. I thought she was just watching your manuscript. It was the letter too that gave it away.
Well, right. It was a precursor of things to come, a harbinger. So I open up the book, and I'm going through. And bearing in mind, there are some, like you are very familiar with this, you know, Chicago style of editing, which of course, you know, I am equally masterful in. And by not, I mean not at all. And so, let's see here, you know, so there are some editorial changes that this editor has made that I don't agree with. And it turns out you know, you went in, like, that had to do with like numbers and counting and the way I was writing the numbers in the book. And so it turned out, you know, according to you, which I trust, that some of those changes were actually correct. But I went through her changes, and there were many changes, and I rejected about 80% of them.
Wow.
Right. Compared to, you know, other people that give me feedback like you, I don't remember statistically what I incorporate anymore, but generally when I trust people, I incorporate 95% of their feedback, and it's just a few things that I don't agree with or something. But I think I incorporated the vast majority comparatively of your feedback. So I had this experience with this woman. I didn't pay her terribly large amounts of money, but I paid her some money, and essentially I threw the money in the garbage can. And I not only that, I also threw some time in the garbage can because I then went through, I must have spent about 5 or 6 hours undoing most of the changes that you made.
It took hours, days.
Hours, a day. Yes, a day was put into undoing those changes. So then, through a group that we were both members of, I had come across you, Nancy, and I'm trying to remember. I must have just reached out to you or something.
Yes, you did.
Like, yeah, and just said like, "Hello, I need an editor. This person was a nightmare. Could you not be a nightmare?" And then you went through and you did this work, and I found also the work was amazing. I found really probably everything that you did was just very on point. I liked how you really know what you're talking about, and I find it amusing that you put these, editor comments on the side that are like, "Well, you see, according to Chicago style, section 𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗵
789, my favorite.
The grammatical rule here is to, put the I before E except after Y and 𝗵𝗶𝗫, and right? So, I could tell you really know what you're talking about, just like this first editor that I had who was like, "I don't know what a keyboard is." And so, let's see. So I really appreciated the quality. And I would say as a result of the quality, I wanted, I got a better book. And part of my goal in hiring an editor was a little bit of perfectionism, which is I want to create a situation where people are less likely to criticize my book for stupid small errors. And so I hired you, Nancy, to do that.
And it's been a pleasure working with you. So thank you for trusting me.
Yeah. So that was my experience and impetus for hiring an editor.
And how about formatting and the formatter who did your, oh my gosh. Yeah, I know that was quite a piece of work too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's so funny, Nancy, because I forget about some of these steps until you remind me of them. I'm going to take a swig of water here.
Okay, sure.
So, maybe you'll remind me of some of the details in case I forget. But formatting, I went on Fiverr again, and trying to think what to say about it. I'm trying to recall at this point, but there was some sort of ordeal where I hired someone and they again were not nearly just up to par for producing a quality product. Again, from my standpoint, here I am, like most other authors, I imagine, or many, I've put a lot of effort into this book, and I want people to be able to appreciate it and not have surface factors take away from their ability to enjoy the book. So that includes things like the cover, things like the editing and the smoothness of the writing. Of course, writing. Bearing in mind, I did go through, before I gave it to you, Nancy, I went through, I think twice with my own red pen, and, which again, that took 2 full days by itself.
Wow.
With my own red pen going through and editing. So let's see here. So I don't remember why I wasn't pleased with the formatting at that point, but I just wasn't. And luckily I was able to get a referral from a friend to format it for me. Yeah, so I tried his formatter, and lo and behold, again, this person was through Fiverr too, and she delivered a great product. I was very, very pleased. Now, that being said, I'm gonna, again, you're asking for some advice, what are my biggest takeaways or something. So here's another one. As much as you can, try and think of all the things that you want to have in your book before you have it formatted. So, in other words, let's see. I knew that I wanted to include my book as part of a sales process, so I let someone who deals with books and sales look at it, and he had some great feedback for me about things to include that I hadn't really considered up until that point. So that meant at the end of the book including a resource guide. So throughout the book, as you'll recall, there are a ton of links to handouts and videos and things to really enhance the ease and learning of what's in the book, and to deepen the learning and to deepen the healing benefits. And so this fellow was advising me that I should take all those links and not only have them where I have them in the book, but make a resource guide at the end, right? And then also that at the end of each chapter, I should have a chapter summary, and then also mention that if they want deeper learning, that they can join my PTSD healing challenge, right? At the end of each chapter. So when I submitted the book to the formatter, those things weren't in there. And then as a result, I had to pay the formatter to do the whole thing again, right? Which again, is not a lot of money, but, and then when I put the book on Amazon, I had to change the title. So that means the book formatter has to format the book again.
Yeah.
And then I realized that the images in the book didn't have the correct pixels per square inch for print, right? So then the book formatter had to format it again with the images that were updated to reflect the higher dots per inch. That's what it is, dots per inch DPI.
Yeah.
Right? So that they wouldn't come out pixelated and blurred in print, right? So now we're talking about multiple reformattings beyond just, hey, I have a finished product here, could you format it for me? Of course, when I initially submitted it to her, I thought it was finished. So take into account all those things that I just mentioned, the dots per inch, the chapter summaries, the resource guide, all those kinds of things. Put them in the book before you submit it to the formatter, so you don't have to pay the formatter multiple times like I did.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
And doing it by yourself. And people should be prepared for this. So thank you for sharing. I thought people should know this. Just don't know what they're getting themselves into.
Well, it also depends on how much of a stickler for quality are you, or do you want?
Yeah, we are. I know we are. Yeah, we are.
So I did what I could to create maximum quality.
And especially if you're a first timer, you don't get like a second, second. What's that saying?
Right. A second strike at the stone or whatever.
Oh, you don't get a second chance to get a first impression. Yeah, that one escaped me for some reason. Right. So now the fun stuff, marketing and promo.
So you want me to talk about that?
Yep.
So I, as we know, I followed a process from 𝗀𝗶𝗺𝗽𝗋 to make the book a bestseller. So I'm going to do my best to recall off the top of my head what's involved with that. So the first thing is to research keywords that fit what you're writing about, that fit what you're writing about, but that also have a decent search volume. When I researched keywords, PTSD healing process had about something like 1,000 searches per month. So I incorporated that into the title of the book. And then I try to think if I incorporated, I don't think I incorporated more keywords in the subtitle, but that's another option there as well. And the idea there is that by doing that, people find your book organically through search terms they're already using when they go on Amazon looking for books and ebooks. Then so the software to do that is Publisher Rocket for researching keywords. Then you can look for categories that your book fits into that are going to be relatively easy to become a bestseller in, and you can put your book into those categories. So those are, and the software for that is 𝗀𝗲𝗁, both of which I recommend, both pieces of software. Then it's funny, I haven't reflected on this in a long time, so I'm recalling like this whole long process while we're on this chat here. So then not only that, but you take the keywords from Publisher Rocket and you put them in your book description on Amazon as well, so that the built-in search engine optimization for Amazon picks up those search terms when people are looking. Now, of course, I ran into the added difficulty of, hey, I've got this nice keyword for my title. I really like my title, but oh wait, Amazon is not letting me use this title. So I then had to change the title, and that the current title, unfortunately, has a lower search volume than the original title. That is to say, changing it from PTSD healing process to PTSD recovery process has a lower search volume, which is annoying.
Yes.
Let's see. So trying to think what else after, yes, okay. And then you follow these strategies and you put the book up on Amazon, you put it up for 99 cents, you join Kindle, I forget what it's called, Kindle Publish, KDP Direct.
Yes.
And you run, or I'll just talk in terms of what I did. So you run these free promos where you're reaching out to these free promotion sites on certain, over a 10-day period. First, you reach out to a few promo sites for free, and they will put your book out there for free to their audience. Then you reach out to like low promo sites with low audience and medium audience and high audience in that order, so that your book is progressively going out to a bigger and bigger audience, which signals to the Amazon algorithm like, hey, there's something here, you should pay attention. And that's how you become a bestseller, basically.
Knowing the right software to use.
Knowing the right software to use, but also just following that promotional process and working with the Amazon algorithm. And then just as a note, Amazon, it's not like they're going to send you an email and say like, you're a #1 international bestseller. So you have to check your rankings in the US domestic market. And then when you go in on the back end, so you can see on your book sales page, like on the page where people go to buy your book, what your rankings are in the details section, whatever. And then on the back end, you can go into your Kindle Direct Publishing account, and you can see, it'll show you the sales links for your book in the different Amazon sales regions. And you can check those regions to find the rankings for your book in other areas, like Japan, like Germany, Canada, Mexico, Australia, etc. So by doing that, I found out that my book was not only #1 international bestseller in 3 categories in the US, but also #1 in 3 categories in Canada and in Australia. Hence, #1 international bestseller.
Wow, anybody can do that too. And they know the right tricks. And have the discipline to do it, you know, to do the whole thing, the whole process.
Yes. Follow through.
And it's good to have people in your team. Can't do it by yourself, obviously.
The book marketing side, in terms of following that process, I did all that stuff myself. Would I recommend doing it all yourself? Probably not, because a bunch of it's really tedious.
Yeah.
Like submitting your book to all the promo sites is very tedious. So, you know, in the future, I would hope to have someone help me do that rather than trying to do it myself.
Yeah, there's always experimentation involved, you know, when it comes to first-time projects.
For sure. Oh yeah.
But yours turned out really, really good. So you'll never know. So anyway, let's go back talking to the actual content of the book. So your book mainly talks about EFT as a modality for trauma recovery. Could you talk about the basics of EFT for those people who don't know what it is?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to do my best to remember this definition of tapping that I came up with recently. So tapping is physically tapping on the, and I'm going to explain these concepts in a second, physically tapping on the meridian points of the body while voicing out loud what it is we're working on and offering any difficult emotions that come up during that process, love and acceptance. So here's how I like to explain this. So the idea then is, from an Eastern medicine perspective, we have these meridian lines, that like power lines, that flow through our body that bring the energy where it needs to go. And that from this perspective, when that energy is flowing properly, that's what causes well-being, versus when there's a block in the flow of energy, that's what causes all disease, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And then, so what we're doing by tapping is we're physically stimulating these meridian points on our body, which are the same points that they use in acupuncture, to unblock the flow of energy through the system. And then we're voicing what it is we're working on. So in the book, what I've laid out is a process of systematically telling the story of an individual traumatic experience, and then as the difficult emotions come up, you're voicing those difficult emotions out loud, and then using tapping to release those emotions so that they're no longer stuck in the system. Let's see. So then what we're also doing with tapping, really briefly, so there's a quote by Carl Jung: what you resist persists, right? So that which you fight against, you give negative energy to, which allows it to sustain itself or grow, right? So very often when we have these emotions related to pain and trauma from our past, we push those emotions down, we bottle them up, we stuff them. And so then they hang around, and that's what, from my perspective, from an Eastern medicine perspective, that's what leads to disease of one kind or another, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so what we're doing with tapping is we're offering love and acceptance to those emotions. So rather than resisting them, we're going totally in the opposite direction, and we're offering them love and acceptance, which allows them and supports them in integrating and releasing, as compared to growing and sustaining. So that is EFT the way I've defined it here for the purposes of this book.
Yeah, that's pretty simple enough for people to understand, because people know about acupuncture, acupressure, and the energy system or points, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your other go-to modalities and practices? Can you talk a bit more about those?
Sure, yeah. So I like tapping for trauma because it's you can make it very formulaic, meaning what I've done in the book and in this challenge that I've created is I've made a step-by-step process that if you follow these steps, you will see some results, and probably some massive results. So I like that tapping provides a structure, a mechanism for achieving these results in a very clear, direct way, especially the way that I've applied it. So let's see. So as I was prepping to do this challenge, which I'm just finishing up the last bits of prep for, and will be over the next few weeks, I recognize that tapping is only going to serve people that can recall the trauma that's affecting them. Meaning there are plenty of people who are unable to remember or recall the memories that are causing their traumatic reactions in PTSD now. And so I became determined that I wanted to serve these other people as well, even these folks that can't recall the trauma. Because again, I know how much of a barrier trauma is to well-being. Like, it is so common, it's almost ubiquitous, right? Like, yes, everyone's got some. And so I wanted to support people in working through that, even if they can't remember it. So I did a bunch of research. I went on Google Scholar and read through article after article after article after article to figure out, okay, what is a holistic method of resolving the trauma when you cannot remember? And essentially what I came up with was breath work. So now, in addition to the tapping protocol, which is for people that are able to remember and who are wanting to systematically release the emotional burden and the emotional charge that they've been carrying related to those memories, so they can move forward without it. I've also created this breathwork protocol that is based in research too, that essentially what I've done is combine sort of some of the best practices from breathwork with best practices from polyvagal theory. This idea that we have a vagus nerve that runs from the brain through all the organs into the belly, and that this nerve governs our fight, flight, freeze response. And so the idea then is people using breath and sound to stimulate this vagus nerve and therefore bring themselves out of fight, flight, or freeze and into trust, safety, and relaxation. And so breath work then, you know, has been a part of my life for many years now. I don't know, 7, 8 years now, something. And it's been one of the most impactful things that I've ever done, right? In terms of the overall transformation and states of consciousness that you can reach just through the breath. And so I had a feeling that breathwork would be a tool to support resolving trauma and PTSD. And so when I went into the research, I went in kind of with that in mind, and I was able to confirm that. And so it's really gratifying to be able to see, like, oh, okay, if you follow these breathwork methods, you too can have healing of trauma. And of course, whether we're talking about tapping or breathwork, something else that's important to me is I don't want people to just have like temporary Band-Aid solutions. Like, right. Oh, I'm feeling better for 5 minutes with this trauma, and then tomorrow, the next day, like,
you get triggered.
Oh, look, it's back again. No, I'm interested in really resolving things at a deep level so that these results last. And what's really cool is the research for tapping and breath work is there, that like even a year, 2 years after going through these types of processes, that the results last.
Wow.
So breath work is another real area of interest of mine, a passion of mine. Another passion is mantra chanting. Mantra chanting, you can call in all these energies that you're wanting to have more of in the now. So you want to be more aligned with truth? Great. There's a mantra for that. You want to be more aligned with love? Great. There's a mantra for that. You want to call in the masculine more? Awesome. There's a mantra. You want to call in more of the feminine? Great. There's a mantra. You want to break patterns that seem unbreakable, that you've been carrying your whole life? Great. There's a mantra for that. And so on and so on and so on. You want to move through obstacles? Awesome. There's a mantra, right? So there's mantras for most any energy that you would want to call into the now. And so it's using sound, right? And we said that sound is one of the ways of stimulating the vagus nerve, of reaching that trust, safety, and relaxation quality or qualities. And so chanting mantras is a beautiful way of doing that. I'm also a fan of energy healing. So
am I.
right.
Probably the only thing that has worked so far.
Right. And so let's see. I think Reiki can be really helpful in that it this is how I think about and teach Reiki. You have in Reiki you have these fancy Japanese words to describe
symbols.
Right, the symbols, which are to describe what it is that's happening and what you want to happen. And so one of those is 𝗀𝗂𝗃, and the way I think of this 𝗀𝗂𝗃 energy is really earth energy, right? So you can bring in this earth energy, which supports grounding and physical healing, right? And then there's 𝗁𝗍𝗁, right, which I think of as divine energy, which supports mental, emotional, spiritual healing. So I think Reiki can be really helpful for those things at that really foundational level. And then my favorite kind of energy work personally is something called the 22 rays of God. So it's 22 different kinds of divine energy that are that each has a different color, each has different qualities associated with it, that are channeled through different higher beings, like ascended masters, archangels, deities, etc. That I just find that method just super, super potent. So for example, like we said, it's 22 different kinds of energy. My favorite, and the one that I most commonly use, is the seventh ray. It's the violet flame. So it's the energy of divine freedom, alchemy, mercy, and justice. So what does that mean? The violet flame takes anything from its lower aspect and transforms it into its higher aspect. It takes any dense crap energy and dissolves it at the particle level, transforms those particles into positive energy, and just lets them fall away. It dissolves karma. It is just a tool of infinite transmutation that allows you to transform things into kind of their pure essence.
Yeah, number 7 should be surprising to people because that's a magic number right there.
Right, magic number. Magic number. Let's see. So, and then something else that I'm really passionate about is actually tantra, but not tantra necessarily is in the way that we may think about it.
Right. The popular connotation or whatever.
Right. I'm interested in it as a form of sacred sex, meaning, let's see. I think that our culture has a lot of sexual shame, a lot of kind of shadowy stuff around sex.
Oh yeah, like a lot of cultures around the world, and trauma too, of course.
For sure. And so, and then, let's see. And then beyond that, I think when we think about sex, we think about it as a source of pleasure, which it is and can be. But I wanted to know how to use sex as a way of connecting with that which is larger than yourself.
Mm-hmm. Not just a physical thing, you know.
Not just a physical
get
thing.
off, you know.
Right. So I went and got training into how to use sex as a way of connecting with God and the universe, as a way of using sex as a method of moving closer to enlightenment, right? And so there are some practices that go along with that just support, I think, massive growth. I don't know, I could talk about this stuff all day. Then there are other things, there are many other things that I'm passionate about as well. Lately, something that I think about is, as humans, we have these foundational activities that we do just going about our lives, right? So we all eat, we all sleep, hopefully we're all having sex.
I was gonna say that.
I'm trying to think what else, other ones. We all drink, right? We all have to drink water, not necessarily alcohol. And help me out here. Am I missing any of these critical foundational ones? I think those are them. And so if we can adjust our diet and maximize our sleep quality and improve and use sex as a very positive, constructive practice, and then hopefully drink clean water, then what we're doing is we're setting the stage and setting a foundation for well-being. And I think it's a lot easier to heal when we're using food as medicine.
Right.
When we're getting the rest and sleep that we need, I think it's a lot easier to heal. Lately, I'm very, very passionate about the healing potential of food. The idea that food carries amino acids, which are the fuel that our brain needs to produce the neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals that help us feel good. And so that eating the proper foods and if necessary, taking supplements that support those amino acids supports your system in finding well-being also. And then getting the proper sleep, right? So things like blacking out your room, turning off your devices 60 minutes before you go to sleep, not eating after a certain time, all kinds of things like that. I've been studying these things recently, so just how much health is linked with sleep,
Big
right?
time.
And then big time, huge. It can't be overstated. And then also just what can be accomplished as far as health from food, right? And particularly mental and emotional health, let alone physical health. And so these are things that I don't think are talked about widely enough.
Oh yeah. Especially nowadays, coronavirus scare,
Right. Yes. So that happened, and and it's happening. And I went and researched, okay, what are the holistic methods for virus prevention, right? Mm-hmm. And, identified a whole protocol with that. Again, research-based.
So you're pretty much holistic service right here, not just everything. There's body, mind, and spirit, because they're one
unit. Body, mind, and spirit.
You can't divorce one from the other.
Exactly.
And yeah, you've just had a webinar series on trauma, right? And what did or did you cover there? Just curious for those people who might be interested in checking out your stuff.
Right. So I covered, so what I did was I surveyed a lot of people with PTSD, and I asked them, what are your biggest barriers to healing PTSD? And there were some themes in their responses, and the themes were anxiety, depression, fear, triggers, lack of support,
A lot of responses, I'm sure.
there was one more here. Fear, triggers, anxiety, depression, trauma itself, and lack of support were the 6 main themes. And then I realized, that really not remembering is a major obstacle too, because people think they have to be able to remember what happened in order to heal.
Yeah, like from way back. That's my case too. That was my case too. I still can't recall what happened, but something must have happened way back then.
Yes, and I'll share that I can't recall almost anything from before age 7, right? And the thing is, I don't have to. I've been able to achieve a lot of healing in myself as a result. And neither do you. Mm-hmm. And so, let's see. And so I took these themes, these challenges that came up in the responses to people, from people, and I made a webinar for each of those issues, basically giving suggestions and instructions and of ways of thinking and approaches that you can use to overcome each of those barriers to heal PTSD. And that's what that webinar series was about.
Hopefully that will whet people's appetite for that now, because we were talking about food, so.
Right, zing. Plus, speaking of food, I've been doing intermittent fasting for like a few months now.
Oh, I've been doing it for years. So.
Have you?
Yeah.
And we're we're now into my eating window. I'm not like anxious to jump off, but I wanted to mention that.
I'm past my eating window too, so.
Are you really?
Yeah, but we're used to it. If you practice it a lot, I mean, you're used to it.
Right. Some days I still get really hungry.
Hangry.
Some days I still get very hungry. Today, though, I'm feeling good now. Oops. What were we talking about?
Yeah, about your program and stuff. Your webinar stuff.
So if you trying to think where the best place to suggest people go to find out more is, you can go to, let's see if this link works really quickly. You can go to, let's see. Great. You can go to clearmyptsd.com/7reasons. That's the number 7. And that'll bring you to a report that shows 7 reasons why tapping works for PTSD based on the research. Mm-hmm. And then if you know that you want to get my book, you can go to, let's see. If you want to get my book, you can go to the ptsdchallenge.com/free book. And I'm just checking these links to make sure they're working.
Of course.
And then if you know that you want to join the challenge, you can just go right to the ptsdchallenge.com/go. And what we're going to be doing in the challenge is over a several-week period, we're going to be using tapping and/or breath work to help you drastically reduce your PTSD, not only in a felt way, but we're actually going to be measuring before and after, so that you know not only are you having a felt experience of less triggers and less less emotional burden in your system, but you're also able to see that there's a measurable decrease in your PTSD. So we're going to, the next challenge will be starting in a few weeks. Let's see. And there will be, the next challenge will be in a few weeks. I am offering a 200% money back guarantee for the challenge.
200, nice.
200%. So that if you do all the work in the challenge and you show me your results and you don't see a measurable decrease in your PTSD, that I will give you twice your money back. What else? So that is the ptsdchallenge.com/go. I think that's it.
Oh yeah, now you're talking about, when we're talking about triggers and stuff like that. And how would you advise people when it comes to dealing with like extreme trauma triggers, especially those who have been in abusive relationships? I'm in a lot of Facebook groups for survivors, and people there can get really nasty and super paranoid when it comes to relationships. I know they're still processing their trauma, but they're either pessimistic or just right hostile to the idea of being in a relationship again. And those who want to be in relationships, like their ego goes into full defense mode.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm reading this fantastic book by David Hawkins called Letting Go. And just yesterday, this guy is an absolute genius, in my opinion, and he's done some incredible work, and including having a psychiatric practice for decades.
I have one of his books, the IODI.
Hawkins. Yeah. Which book do you have? Power versus Force?
Yeah, the IODI. The Eye of the Eye. Yeah.
Oh, the Eye of the Eye. Okay, yeah. So let's see. So he gives this example of this woman that comes in to see him who, just like you just said, has been divorced, and she joins a group to hang out with other divorced women, and it turns out that these women that are in the group are very, very bitter about their divorces, and very like unhappy with life in general. And so she comes into the psychiatric practice and she shares with David Hawkins that she has, she's getting these headaches. She had one other symptom. I don't remember what it was. Oh, an ulcer. That's what it was, an ulcer. And so he listens to her experience and he asks her some questions and he finds out that she belongs to this group. And so he tells her to, she asks, what do you think I could do to try and resolve these headaches and this ulcer? Well, why don't you go ahead and spend 3 months leaving that group, outside of that group, that you're no longer associating with these folks that have this really negative life view, and see what happens. So sure enough, she left the group. She started hanging out with people that he suggested would have a more positive view and were kind of working on themselves after experiencing divorce. And sure enough, she started to not only feel better, but have a much better life outlook, and then ended up meeting someone else, right? So something that's coming up for me here, something that I think about a lot. It's amazing how many concepts we've covered on this one call.
Yeah, but, we love different things. So,
but I'll bring in yet another concept here, which is the drama triangle. The drama triangle has 3 positions. You have the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer.
Yes.
So the victim feels helpless, powerless, can't make change, doesn't know how they're going to make change. The persecutor looks at the victim and points the finger of blame and judges them, criticizes them. The rescuer looks at the victim and says, "Don't worry, I'll save you, even though I don't want to." So they rescue from a place of obligation, which they then start to resent the victim over time. So I think when we're in groups like that, it becomes really easy to swim in the victim mentality of powerlessness, and then to switch in between that to criticizing and blaming and judging, and to move back and forth between those 2 positions. So what that does is it helps you to stay not in your power. it helps you to continue avoiding well-being. And so the idea then is, I was just talking with someone recently who had gotten out of a serious relationship and was feeling some anger and sadness about some of the things that had taken place. And I suggested to him, just looking at the relationship, how did you show up? Ask yourself. And then how would you like to show up going forward? And then how would you like your relationships to look going forward? So it's this idea of, rather than getting bogged down and continuing to stay in this blame and victim mentality of, these are the bad things that happened to me, it's asking yourself, well, what was I responsible for? How did I contribute? And how would I like to show up going forward? And then what would I like to create going forward? So we're moving out of powerlessness and into choice and freedom and autonomy, and by doing so, taking back some power. We're also, ironically, taking back power by taking responsibility for our role. Mm-hmm. When we refuse to acknowledge how we contribute, we stay in the victim role. Whereas when we are willing to acknowledge how we contribute and how we showed up, that helps us take our power back, even though it might feel like eating,
right?
Nothing, eating not something very not nice.
Yes.
Let's see. So those are some things that came up for me hearing your question, and then trying to think what else I might say. So triggers, just like from a PTSD standpoint, from my perspective, are just like flashbacks, are just like nightmares, are just like,
mm-hmm.
There's a fourth one. It's hard to remember all four of them at the same time. Are just
yes.
Triggers, nightmares, flashbacks, and oh man, it's not going to come to me right now.
Dissociation?
No. Although that fits this as well. Crap, I'm not remembering right now. But all those things are neon lights, are signals from your system that there is a wound here that needs to be resolved, that wants to be resolved. And so when you have a trigger, what it is it's a part of your system raising its hand saying, hey, pay attention, look here, I want attention. And so then the idea is to go in and heal whatever it is by integrating and releasing the difficult feelings that you carry.
So even in the context of abusive relationships, that's how I got into studying about PTSD and everything, about healing and recovery and Jungian psychology, because I'm a survivor myself. So that's why, and it helped me, not for lack of a better term, I don't like to use the word recover, like we're broken or something like that. It helped me not just survive, but thrive, so that's why I ask you those questions, just to help those who are still in that state.
Right. I don't even like the word survivor, because survivor.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, I don't. For lack of a better term, that's what I said. Yeah.
Right. It contextualizes our life in the context of the abuse or whatever the difficulty was, cancer, etc. It allows whatever it was that happened to us, and it makes it our defining concept, right? We are defining ourselves based on the damage, right?
Yeah, the ego identification, yeah.
And so instead, again, it's like, what happened? How did I show up? What would I like going forward? How am I going to create what I would like going forward? I don't know if I addressed your question though.
Yeah, I mean that was good, because people don't know where to go from where they are right now. so they don't stay stuck in there forever, because it's hard, been there, so I know.
But if you identify, if you make your identity based on the things that happen to you, and or you continue to blame people, it causes you to stay stuck in those same patterns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you believe that has something to do with identity politics? Because identity politics, sorry, I didn't enunciate more clearly enough. And that's what I think it's all about. It's about unresolved collective trauma, like overcentered on this planet. It's the ego over-identification. Oh, I'm this, I'm that.
Yes.
So much about labels, you know, but
Yes.
wanting special treatment, sense of entitlement, us versus them, and projection, big time projection. So I really believe it's about trauma. And I think the world needs a collective shadow work. And let's talk about the collective unconscious too while we're at it. So I just want to know your thoughts on this topic.
You know, it sounds like I agree with you that there's a lot of wounding, and it's easy at a collective level too to feed into that victim mentality and to operate from that space of powerlessness, and to maintain that victim mentality at a collective level by blaming other groups of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've seen that play out multiple ways throughout history, and to an extent, I think, are seeing that play out now. And so it's not this or that in terms of who's responsible. It's like, well, how do we own our respective responsibilities and take responsibility for our own contributions on both sides. Mm-hmm. And I think that has to happen at the individual level too.
Personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility. But I, like you said, I think that these things that are playing out at the collective level are symptomatic, or again, just like indicators of what's happening at a individual level. Meaning, there's this fantastic book that I highly, highly recommend called How to Break Free of the Drama Triangle in Victim Consciousness. And in that book, the researchers suggest that about 70% of the population around the world is operating in this victim consciousness. And I've heard another speaker say that it could be up to 95%, maybe even higher. And so the majority of people are operating in this trauma triangle at any given time, meaning they're feeling their own powerlessness, or they're blaming others for their current circumstances, or they're feeling obligated to rescue others.
Yeah.
While not
Yep.
So this drama triangle is where the majority of people are spending their time totally unaware. These are unconscious patterns that are operating. So individuals are playing out this drama triangle at any given time, and so these identity politics that you're speaking of are also the drama triangle playing out just at the collective level.
Mm-hmm.
So it supports staying in powerlessness, staying. It
makes me feel powerful, you know, like, oh, I deserve special treatment because something bad happened to me. You know?
Right. So it gratifies your ego on a temporary basis. So it's like having a thimble full of water or something, where it's like nourishing in the most temporary, minute way. But really, in the long term, that's not where your happiness and well-being is going to come from.
Right, because it's just a surface level thing, you know?
Right, and then what happens is we become habituated to the idea that that's how we get our needs met, that's how we get our energy, and so it becomes an endless vicious cycle of, okay, now I need to blame someone else in order to feel better about myself. now I need to judge and criticize someone else in order to feel better about myself. Now I need to stay in my powerlessness because then someone comes and rescues me, and that's how I get my needs met. So it becomes these like temporarily gratifying states that become vicious cycles where we're staying stuck in these situations of powerlessness.
I never thought about the triangle, the drama triangle. Like, wow, that's very insightful. And I study a lot of this kind of stuff, so I was learning new things.
Yeah, drama triangle is one of the most helpful frameworks, I think, period. It is an amazing way to look at relationship dynamics and to be able to identify these patterns. And then once you identify the patterns, you can then choose to shift out of them. Trying to think of the ways that I tell my clients to shift out of them. Well, the first way is, the first main way, easiest way is to take responsibility for your role. Second way is to ask for what you want. Right? It probably sounds familiar from what I was saying earlier. And then the third way is to do the deep work. The authors of How to Break Free of the Drama Triangle and Victim Consciousness recommend looking at, for example, what did I get from mom that I wanted? What did I get? Let's see. Hang on. What did I not get from mom that I wanted? And what did I get from mom that I didn't want? What did I not get from dad that I wanted? What did I get from dad that I didn't want?
Yeah.
And going through and resolving these kinds of core wounds. And then if we resolve these core wounds, and this kind of loops back to your triggers question earlier, there's nothing for the trigger to latch onto. There's nothing for the hook to sink into, and so then you don't get triggered because now the underlying wounds are resolved. Then you don't go into the drama triangle because now your powerlessness and wounding are no longer there in the same way.
That's quite a process,
Right, it's ongoing. It's
Yep.
layers and layers of stuff.
Yeah, because you keep on discovering things. I mean, as long as you have a physical body.
Right.
And now I don't know if we've talked about the law of attraction, because I know you know that stuff like many other holistic practitioners or spiritual folks do. And do you believe it can be harmful, specifically the watered down commercial version promoted by The Secret? Like the typical new age bullshit, focus on the negative and ignore the negative. I mean, focus on the positive, ignore the negative, sweep everything under the floor. Me mentality. Yeah, it's spiritual bypassing. It doesn't help because of trauma and thriving after trauma. What are your thoughts?
Right. So the idea then, the real law of attraction from my perspective is everything has a vibration and a frequency. And so as far as I understand, what they teach more widely is like, visualize what you want, and then it will come to you. Focus on the feeling of what you want, and then it will come to you. But really, everything has frequency and vibration. And so if you're carrying frequencies of, like, if your dominant frequency is shame, if your dominant frequency is guilt, grief, anger, fear, sadness, etc., then you're going to line up with situations that reinforce that dominant feeling. Your reality is going to reflect and mirror that back to you. So the task from my perspective then is to do the inner work and resolve those wounds so that so that your frequency increases, and from a David Hawkins perspective, you move through the levels of consciousness at ever increasing frequencies, and then as your frequency goes up, you become a match to new and better things. That's the idea. That to me is the real law of attraction.
Yeah. It's good to focus on the negative because you want to get down to the root. If you don't keep on pushing it under the rug, sweeping under the rug, I mean, it's still going to show up.
Right. I don't know that you actually have to focus on it per se and look for it exactly, but what I find is the universe will show you one way or another.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go looking for your negative wounds. The universe will show you these wounds, just like we talked about earlier, right? We said nightmares, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts,
Yes.
right? And triggers are all indicators that there's a wound here that's trying to resolve itself. That it's the subconscious showing you these wounds so that you can heal them, so that you can notice them. And so your system and your reality will show you the wounds that you have that want attention in a progressive manner, where it's like deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I find you don't have to look for them. And then, when they come up, then it's a matter of doing the work to resolve them, which then increases your frequency over time.
Yeah, I like your take on that, because not a lot of people talk about it, just a shiny, happy kind of thing, Little flowery unicorns or whatever you want to call them,
Right.
Rainbows.
Right.
And yeah, you were talking about your videos, your live streams. You're talking about addiction and money problems, career problems, and how they are related to trauma. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the connection.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to use the bathroom really quickly.
Okay. All right. I don't have any intermission music, so I wish I could take this laptop over there to my grand piano so I can serenade you guys while you guys watching this. So there's like no dead air while we're taking this intermission. So I hope you guys don't mind the silence for a little bit, because I honestly don't know what to talk about, because this is supposed to be an interview and this is not a live stream, this is recorded. So stick around. Maybe I should pull up some videos from YouTube. I don't know. Could be too intrusive, I guess.
All right.
Okay, all right. I have to talk to myself a little bit.
I heard you. I heard it was an exciting conversation.
Yeah. Was productive. Okay. So where were we? I don't remember. It was
You asked me about addiction and trauma and money.
Yes.
I got to try and remember what I said about it. Well, let's talk about trauma and money, and then we'll talk about addiction and money. So trauma affects the root chakra. Why? Because trauma impacts our sense of safety and security. So which chakra is money connected to? The root chakra. So oftentimes when we have trauma, our sense of safety and security get really diminished, right? We don't feel safe in the world. We don't feel safe in and of ourselves. Might not even feel safe to be in your own body. Hence dissociation, like we were just talking about a moment ago.
Yeah.
And so then from an energetic perspective, your root chakra is, and so you need to improve your sense of safety and security and then concurrently your root chakra will open and your ability to attract money improves, abundance improves. And then trauma and addiction. I have some research that shows that firstly, like 80 to 85% of people with PTSD have at least one other mental health issue.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then additionally, 50 to 66% of people with PTSD have an addiction issue. And so why? We have, along with trauma, but also with life, we have difficult emotions that come up.
Right.
And so what addictions allow us to do is they allow us to avoid feeling those emotions. We get to escape them temporarily. And so what addiction is it's like putting a blanket over the emotions temporarily rather than dealing with the actual underlying cause of what's under the emotions.
Kind of like a Band-Aid solution.
Like a Band-Aid, yes. It's avoidance. The metaphor that I like for it lately is it's like if you had an elephant in your living room and you throw a blanket over the elephant and you pretend the elephant's not there.
Yeah.
The elephant is still there. The trauma and the wounds are still there. You're just ignoring them and they're continuing to affect you whether you ignore them or not. That elephant is still there whether you pretend it is not there or not.
Yeah.
And then as a result of the addiction, we don't just numb out to certain feelings, right? We don't just numb out to the ones we're trying to avoid, like the anger, sadness, fear, shame, doubt, guilt, blah, blah, blah. We also numb out to all of our feelings. So then as a result of that, we're not experiencing our life as fully as we possibly could. We're only experiencing partial life. So there's that too.
And how
because we become desensitized to our feelings. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I thought you were gonna continue. So, or are you pretty much done with that? What you have to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just wondering of like how does shadow work factor into this whole trauma work?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So,
Yeah, we're talking about Jungian psychology, so.
All right. All right. So, okay. So, trauma causes these emotions in the system. Again, usual suspects: guilt,
Yes.
shame, anger, sadness, fear, etc. And so these emotions are now in the system and they cause thoughts to arise. Like, I'm a bad person. Like, the world is not safe. Like, I'm not safe. So, and others, those are examples of intrusive thoughts from a PTSD standpoint. Yep. About self, others, and the world, right? This person's out to get me. They want to hurt me, right? I imagine some of these statements sound familiar from these Facebook groups you've been hanging out in. So, is that true?
Yep. 500%.
So these feelings are then in the system, and then they're causing these thoughts, and then these feelings lead to behaviors based on the feelings. Well, the world is not safe, so I guess I better stay isolated and stay lonely, and therefore not fully engage with the world and not fully live my life, right? So now there's a shadow, an unconscious shadow that's operating as a result of the feelings that are stuck in the system. So now on the one hand, we have these feelings, which themselves can be very difficult and feel like suffering. Then we have thoughts arising from the feelings. Then we have behaviors arising from the feelings. And then we have a shadow caused by those thoughts and feelings. So from my perspective, it seems like if you can work through the feelings and acknowledge the feelings, but also move them through the system, not forcibly, but by offering them love and acceptance, and by listening to them and seeing what it is they want to share with you, that a lot of the unconscious tendencies will also dissipate too. And you can also sit down and have a conversation with the part of you that does X, the part of you that shuts down an intimate relationship, the part of you that gets really angry when someone says that they don't like the flavor of ice cream that you like, right? You can sit and have a conversation with that part and express how you're feeling toward that part and express how that part has been impacting you. And then you can actually sit as that part of yourself. And you can ask yourself, okay, when did I come into Nancy's life? When did I come into David's life? And what was going on at that time? And how did I serve them at that time? And how am I serving them now? And, oh, by the way, what, hey, part of you that gets really angry when people insult the ice cream that I like, what do you need to feel better and stop getting triggered when people insult the ice cream that I like, right? So you can, this is an example, but you can have a conversation and have a dialogue with these parts to integrate them too. So there are 10,000 ways to go about doing this work. It's just a matter of which way resonates for you right now, which way seems most helpful for you right now, and following that method.
Yes, so many things to choose from. You just kind of have to experiment.
Well, you see what you get drawn to.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's all it is. You see what you get drawn to.
It's about intuition.
And following the feeling. Surprise,
right.
Surprise. There's that word again.
Again, yeah. Don't push them away. Don't push your feelings away. They keep on coming up for you. And let me see here. Yeah, now your shameless plug part. How can people get in touch with you to do this work and all the fun stuff,
You can go to davidredbord.com and just contact me through there. You can email me at david@davidredbord.com. Redbord is REDBORD. Let's see. You can reach out to me on Facebook if you'd like. That's basically it.
Yeah, you have plenty of internet presence right there. So yeah. What's next for you? Any new books or new projects in the horizon?
So I'm launching this challenge, and I want to see how many people that I can help resolve their PTSD over a period of several weeks, and then continue to hold these challenges on an ongoing basis to, again, help as many people as possible drastically reduce their PTSD. Another quote by Rumi that I like is, you are not a drop of water in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop, right? So when we help, like, the idea of helping hundreds or thousands of people drastically reduce the role of trauma and PTSD in their lives through these challenges, through the book, etc., really lights me up, because then I think about the ripple effect of that.
Right.
Right. And, you and I on this call, we're talking about the collective unconscious. So I think about the impact of hundreds or thousands of people reducing their trauma, what the impact of that is on the collective. unconscious, right? The collective consciousness. So that's my current focus. After this, I have a whole bunch of other thoughts. The question is just, what am I going to go with? After this, I may focus more on one-on-one coaching. I may focus on making some kind of mastermind to support people in integrating and releasing these various kinds of barriers. That's one option. Another option is I want to create similar courses and challenges and books around resolving depression, anxiety, social anxiety.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. Yep.
And addiction. I'm trying to think if there are other ones in there. Right now, those are the ones that are coming to me. I want to support people in improving their emotional self-awareness and their ability to work with their emotions and to communicate with effectively around their feelings and needs and the feelings and needs of others. So that's another body of work, or part of the body of work. And then I want to dive in and support people in improving their self-worth and other things as well. So that's quite a lot of stuff there.
Oh, I know. That's a handful. That's a lifetime worth of work. Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And you kept me working all the time. So tell me like some fun facts about you, like hobbies, whatnot, you know? Because I know we talk about a lot of things. We're kind of like Renaissance personalities, I guess. We like so many things.
Fun facts about me. Something I really enjoy is going for a walk, going for a hike. So I actually take a walk for an hour and a half per day.
That's a lot.
It's a long walk. You know, I have a Fitbit here, and if I go on my hour and a half walk, I get my 10,000 steps.
Nice.
You know, and then that's beyond what I'm getting already just walking around here at home. In addition to, I love cooking. Absolutely love cooking. I have an Instant Pot. I use it all the time.
Oh, sweet.
I love making gluten-free vegan goodies that are not only very healthy for you, but also taste very good. Like right now in my fridge, there's the remaining portion of a chimichurri salad. It's like this very green sauce that's flavored with cilantro and cilantro and parsley, and some other things like oregano and red pepper and all this stuff. So it's this very, very, very green sauce.
Yeah, I imagine.
That I then put over, you know, mushrooms, zucchini noodles that I made with the spiralizer.
Low carb, yes. Low carb for the win.
Tomatoes. Yeah, exactly. Again, doing this nutrition research, I found out you don't need carbs. So you don't need to keep eating grains.
Unless you want to run a marathon or you want to do a triathlon or something.
Right. Let's see. You just need protein and fat, but then you also need these vitamins and things and amino acids and so on. And then, you know, also in the salad are a lot of beans. So I use beans as a major source of protein. And then through the beans, you get some carbs.
Yep.
Let's see. So I love cooking. I love going for walks and hikes.
You love animals too, right?
I love animals too. I have a cat over here who's busy napping over there. Hard at work.
Yes, very typical.
Very typical. I love dogs. I'm a dog person, even though I have a
Same
cat.
here. I have a cat and dog, so a cat and a dog.
My cat is a dog cat, so he's a cat that has a lot of dog qualities. So I like him.
What kind of dog do you have? It looks like a puggle.
No, it's not my dog. It's someone else's dog.
Oh, okay.
That was in a photo. That's all. I was at a friend's house.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
No dogs at the moment.
Oh, and just a cat. Okay.
Yeah, just a cat. I grew up with terriers, so 𝗀𝗵𝗆 Terrier, Wheaton Terriers. My parents have a couple Wheatons.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. Yeah, the fluffy ones.
Yeah, they're very soft. They're very fluffy. They don't shed. They're sweet as could be. They're super affectionate. Amazing dogs. What else do I like to do? I like to watch some TV, watch some movies. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I like to do that too.
I'm sure you have some guilty pleasures when it comes to TV shows.
Yeah. Lately, I'm rewatching my favorite, one of my favorite animes ever, which is Hunter x Hunter.
Nice.
Which has amazing character development and an amazing plot. Highly recommended. On Netflix, by the way.
Oh, okay. I have to check it out. Yeah, because like I have to check it out because I'm like a little bit of variety because I'm on a steady diet of 90 Day Fiancé. So I'm really good right now.
Yeah, I've never watched that.
It gets really hilarious. Kind of like, well, lately it's kind of a bit like Jerry Springer-ish.
Huh. So those, I'm trying to think what else. So those are, those are some things I like to do.
And no news, which is good news. I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
So, any additional thoughts, closing thoughts, famous last
words?
Yes.
If you're concerned about the coronavirus, wash your hands.
Yes.
Get some sleep.
Common sense.
Sleep affects your immune system, so get some sleep.
Sunshine, if you can get it.
Sunshine.
Exercise to heat up your body.
Exercise. Eat cruciferous vegetables.
Yes.
You can Google a list of cruciferous vegetables.
Antioxidants. Yeah.
Onions, garlic. Cruciferous vegetables. Mushrooms. And then you can take a probiotic.
Yep.
Most probiotics have some of these really common strains that are shown to improve like your natural killer cells, your white blood cells, which will kill off invaders. So if you are on a probiotic, keep taking your probiotic. If you're not on one, you can get a cheap one. There's the best one, according to the research that I found for women, is the Garden of Life for women probiotic, the one with 50 billion in it. It has, I think, all or nearly all the strains that were studied in terms of white blood cells and immune response. And then there's one other thing, zinc. So you can take a multivitamin that has your 100% of zinc in it. Zinc is also shown to improve your immune response. And then you can take herbal extracts. So herbal extracts, some of them are shown to really fight against viruses. So things, some of which I've never heard of, some of which I have, but things like garlic extract. You can just get a tablet. You can get olive leaf extract, elderberry. Elderberry is a big one. You can drink elderberry tea. You can take an elderberry extract. Something called astragalus.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've heard of it.
Astragalus. And then there are a few others of these, but those are some examples. And they're shown, at least in the lab, to fight against viruses. like I think elderberry is shown to fight against something like somewhere around like 6 to 12 different viruses, including things like the flu. You know, then you have things like the avian flu, and then you have things like herpes and HIV and all kinds of stuff. And some of these extracts are shown to combat viruses like those too, in addition to the flu and stuff. Yeah. So there's some really, really cool research with that. So long story short, probiotic, cruciferous vegetables, onions, garlic, mushrooms, zinc in your multivitamin, and then you can take an herbal extract in addition to washing your hands, and you'll probably be A-okay with the coronavirus.
Yep. Don't buy into the, you know, the whole this fear porn thing, you know.
Yeah.
You want to traumatize yourself even more.
Yeah, it's really interesting because on the one hand, it is an epidemic that, you know, currently there's no vaccine for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you know, it's not nearly on the scale of the flu. It's like comparing a mountain to a molehill.
Right.
And yet the flu, we have a vaccine for it. And yet still tens of thousands of people every year die of the flu. There are, like, it's interesting to put the numbers in context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I did this research. The flu has, I think it's 30 to 45 million cases per year, and then of those, like something like I don't remember the numbers anymore, but maybe tens of thousands of people will die every year. And then there's a vaccine. And then so the death rate for the flu comes out to like 1%. And then compared to the coronavirus, right now in the US, we have 1,000 cases. There's something like 100,000 worldwide, which compared to like 30, 45 million is
right.
Obviously nothing. And the death rate for the coronavirus is 3.4%, which is what I calculated. And so if you compare that, that's obviously triple what the flu is at 1%, or more than triple. But those deaths, which I think, I haven't looked at the data, but I imagine they're just like the flu, where those deaths are happening among folks with the elderly, and weakened immune systems. So probably you're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling people, and some people just don't believe it. Yeah. Well.
Yep. And it's just an odd thing. You know, I think you know, the correct information is that plenty of people can and may get sick, but really most of those people will recover.
Yeah.
You know, again, a death rate of 3.4%. So that means that 96.6% of people don't die.
Exactly.
So there you go. And again, you know, just linking it back to our earlier conversation, it's diet, right? So we, you know, there's all those things that I named as far as things to help with the coronavirus are things that are going to help with any virus, and things that are going to help you not get sick in general.
Right. It's going to help you improve your mental health, emotional health. Yeah.
Right. So, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, I totally forgot. Oh, so those, you know, I think a lot of what's contributing to deaths and things with things like the coronavirus and the flu is, you know, again, we have the standard American diet, which is literally
SAD. Yes.
SAD.
SAD.
and then we have an overstressed, underslept, poorly fed population, which is just ripe for getting sick. So then if we sleep properly, if we eat properly, if we I forget what the third thing was, but if we take care of ourselves properly, we're probably going to be a-okay. So.
Yep. Just basic common sense stuff, for daily life. It doesn't matter what happens out there. I mean, just keep doing what you need to do, normal stuff, maintenance stuff.
Right.
Very timely conversation here. I thought we would just add it to this interview right here. Yeah. So I guess that's it, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. Because we have to, just before we get hangry, just.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Not eating for a long time, so sometimes it doesn't bother.
I'm gonna come to your house and eat right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get on a plane here with the coronavirus.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with what you call green language. I don't know if you've delved into esoteric spirituality.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's about, like puns, like about like esoteric stuff, like coronavirus is basically, corona means crown, like Latin and Spanish. Right. Mind virus, head virus, mind virus, mind control.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's gonna be another conversation altogether.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because I like, studying stuff like that. That's outside the mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing is interesting. So on the one hand, it is a disease, a health issue without a vaccine, and on the other hand, there's a whole lot of fear about that issue.
Yep, and I'm sure there's going to be another one, like, tomorrow. This is a pattern.
Right, absolutely. Next year, there will be another one. What's really interesting also, or what I found really interesting, is that if you look on Netflix, some of the most popular things right now are the movie Outbreak, and also this show called Contained, which has to do with containing a virus outbreak. So, the collective consciousness is really responding to this fear around this virus. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's like over the years too. It comes to like post-apocalyptic movies and dystopian movies, novels. They talk about this. It's just, like authors, writers. They just have like this intuition. Yes. They know what's going to happen.
Yes, in fact, that's how this coronavirus experience felt to me for the first little while, in what is it, February, January here, where things were ramping up with the fear. It really felt to me like a zombie apocalypse or something.
Yeah.
That like it's spreading and it's out of control and it's happening and what are you gonna do about it?
Zombies, they want your brains.
Brains. We'll call them corona zombies then.
So there you go. Like most of the people are sleepy masses. Like zombies, they're actually metaphors for people who are asleep. They're not spiritually awake.
Yeah, there's another fantastic poem by Rumi, which I can't quote fully off the top of my head because it's a whole poem, but it's called "Don't Go Back to Sleep."
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really good. Let's see.
Yeah, it's like a rabbit hole. There's always something you want to discover.
It's the breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep.
Wow, that's a nice way to close this interview.
Yep. Yeah, notice he tells you ask for what you really want, which is also a way of getting out of the drama triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Ta-da!
Oh, there you go. Everything just comes together like that.
Ta-da!
Awesome.
All right. Shall we wrap?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Nancy.
Oh, thanks so much, David. I'm learning like different things. I've been learning different things and just more things to add to my repertoire of knowledge. So I hope you guys will join me next time. Who knows what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about really, really, really juicy stuff, like controversial stuff even. That's going to be scheduled for next month. Yeah, stay tuned. I don't care if I'm going to get a lot of flack because I'm scared sometimes. Like, what will people think of me? Will people want to work with me? Will people still want to be my friends? But, the truth needs to be spoken. And that's what we have to do as spiritual warriors anyway. That's part of our work. So just hang tight and we'll get there. The fun stuff's coming up. So cross your fingers and toes and pause. Until next time, thank you.
All right, Nancy.
All right.
Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.